Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dr. Search. So welcome to another episode of Search for the Truth. Our goal is to really educate people on nutrition and how to empower themselves to heal with nutrition, because we know that food is powerful. So today I have a really special guest. I have Miss Amy White with us. She's a board-certified holistic nutritionist and functional nutrition and lifestyle practitioner. So Amy, thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. I'm excited to be here.
Good. So can you tell us a little bit, first of all, about yourself and why you have a passion to, work with clients to get their health back to optimum function?
Well, of course, I have my own story. And so I'm in my mid-50s now. But when I was in my late 30s, I was not feeling great. I was, that place where I just thought, oh my gosh, this is what happens. Everyone says that things go downhill. You hit 40 and it just gets worse and worse. And I was like, I'm closing in on 40 and this is not okay. So anyway, I realized that at the time, and I decided I was just going to do everything right, follow the American food guidelines. I'm just going to get strict. So I did that for a few years and nothing changed. I was achy. I was puffy. My clothes weren't fitting. I wasn't sleeping. I was really angry. It was not fun to be around. And then I was just getting kind of more frustrated and more hopeless because I thought I'm doing everything right. This is not, I'm too young for this to be it for me.
Yeah.
And then I ended up actually learning about nutrition because of a family health issue. So my daughter and conventional medicine couldn't help us. So it all of a sudden became something that we had to figure out. And I guess that's something I've learned about myself. I figure stuff out. I don't just go, okay, this is it. That's not what I do. So I figure stuff out. I figure stuff out for my clients, for me, obviously for my family. But anyway, that's what got me into holistic nutrition. And once I realized, well, with my daughter, as soon as we made a simple change to her diet, it just changed her so much. I mean, crazy stuff like dandruff that she'd had since she was a baby, gone within a week. Stinky feet.
Wow.
Yes, that she'd had since she was a kid, gone. All of a sudden, she starts like shedding weight. She wasn't even trying. It just sort of started coming off. And I thought, oh my God, food is magic. And I looked at my husband and I said, I have to know more about this. And I said, I've run out of things to read. So I think I have to enroll in a program. But I have to get my master's degree because they will have a reading list. And he was like, okay. So that's where it started. And then all of a sudden, as soon as I got into that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what's going on with my body. And so now in my mid-50s, I am so much healthier, stronger, leaner, happier, mentally clear. I have more energy than I did in my 30s. And I see patients, and I have seen patients in their 30s, in their late 30s, who have said to me, I know this is as good as it's going to get, but I know it's not going to get better, but I just don't want things to get worse. And I look at them and I'm like, you're 37. You're 37, what are you doing? So it excites me to look at people like that, 37, 45, 50, 55, 60, older, and be like, no, you can be better than you are today, tomorrow.
Yes.
So it's fun.
Fascinating, really, really interesting, actually. And this is a pattern that I have seen myself as well. People in the 30s and 40s, they come in, they feel like they're 70, 75.
Yes.
So you don't have to feel that way. There's something you can do.
Exactly. But you have to be willing to commit to you.
I mean, I have a patient who came to me last month, almost 90 years old. And he said, I have so much to do in my life. I need to stay healthy. I'm 90 years old. Unbelievable. I love
that. Well, that's my mother-in-law's 89. She'll be 89. And
wow.
she was just visiting and she was telling me about the trips that she's got planned. This woman travels all over the world. And I'm like, okay, if I could be you.
That's good, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, having a goal in mind, it's really important, right? Otherwise, you don't have a purpose. It's hard to have a drive, a desire to live and be healthy. So why do you think people are getting sicker so much younger than before?
I do think food is a factor. I do. There's a word that I wish I could coin. I didn't coin this phrase, metabolic debt. I wish I did, but I didn't. I don't know. I don't even remember where I heard it, but I love it because it's kind of like your body will take care of you as much as it can for as long as it can.
Yes.
And then we get to a certain age and our body is just kind of like, I've done my best and I just can't do it anymore. You're going to have to help me. So it's like we've built up this metabolic debt and all of a sudden it's time now that we have to stop and we have to reevaluate and readjust and we have to now turn around and help our body because it just can't do it anymore. And why is it happening younger and younger? Well, we're seeing kids now with fatty liver disease.
Yeah.
And they're talking soda, they're talking, high fructose corn syrup, they're talking sugars. So to me, it has a lot to do with what everyone's eating because I see it when they change their diet, everything changes. And the younger I had somebody yesterday, I was talking to somebody who was 18 years old and I was thrilled. I'm like, oh my gosh, the younger, the better. I'm like, you are so lucky to be asking these questions now because you have your whole life to just get better and better. So for me, it's so exciting when I see people shifting in their 20s. Yeah.
It's so rewarding because they're so young, like you said. They're younger, right? They get better faster. Their body is not as sick or broken, I should say.
Yeah.
It makes sense to do. And when I see kids coming in 4 or 5 years old, it's like, thank God they have a good, smart mom to take care of the body before it gets sicker.
Yes.
If you guys have any question, please let me know. I can write a comment so I can ask our guest today about your questions. So what is your approach when you see a new client? So how do you work with somebody new who wants to reach out to you?
Well, I actually just started my newish thing called my Healthy You program because I'm trying to shift more into this overall body health. It's not just food, it's sleep, it's exercise, it's stress management, but it's mostly really kind of trusting yourself. People have no confidence in their choices, they're learning. So with me, I teach them, what food is, what it does to the body, how to recognize, how to read food labels, how to understand ingredients, what that means for them. And then it's going to be different for everybody. So I always look at, I always talk through people through this idea of the spectrum of health. So where do you fall on the spectrum of health? Because that's going to kind of dictate where you might need to start with certain diet principles.
Yeah.
And, it's a sliding scale with those diet principles. You might start somewhere, but then, be sliding to sort of some different principles as your body changes and adjusts. I'm wondering, am I getting an echo?
You're good. You're really clear, actually.
Okay. So we always go there, but for me, it's one-on-one's really important because it's this, so it's really 12 weeks of one-on-one because those first 3 months are so important. And that's where everything solidifies. And the biggest thing is shifting people from this idea of being attached to their goal to being committed to their goal. Because when they're attached to their goal, that they're creating that attachment causes the goal to mean something about them personally. Like if they fail or succeed, it says something about them. So they're attaching meaning to that goal. And it's really hard to not have this now or never mentality and this, sort of ability to quit when things don't go right and sort of collect this evidence that, I knew I was never going to lose weight. I knew it. I knew it. I mean, that's just me. I'm never going to lose weight. So you attach this meaning about yourself. Once you can get past this attachment and move to commitment, all of a sudden it's all data. It's not personal. And now a commitment is something that keeps you from quitting. It actually makes you a stronger person so that you're more goal-oriented in all areas of your life. You learn how to figure it out. There's no finish line. You're just working it. You're collecting data. Failure is just a way to learn more. And you go, oh, that didn't work. I guess I need to evaluate, look at what I was doing, change it up. But with me for 12 weeks, you're with me. I'm going to sit there and I'm going to help you look at it that way, because it's hard until you get used to it. It's really easy to be mad at yourself and cycle in your head. And so you need somebody to go, let's look at the stuff that did go well. And then let's work on the things that didn't go well. And that, I think it really helps. It makes a difference.
I can speak for myself. It does. When you have somebody, a coach or somebody to be accountable to, it's much easier to get to the goal and achieve your goals, actually. Me, from my experience, I've tried all kind of diet with my patients. I've tried veganism, vegetarianism, the blood type diet, and all those different diets that people talk about.
Yeah.
But from my experience, it seems that the lower carb diet seems to work better with people. So what do you think about low carbs, keto, paleo? Is that something that everybody should be doing? It's a big thing out there right now. Everybody seems to be doing it.
I'm a fan. However, it depends on the person. It depends on where they are on the spectrum of health. Are they a type 2 diabetic? Are they pre-diabetic? Are they an athlete? Are they doing glycotic movement? So are they doing like Tough Mudders and different kinds of endurance races, things like that? For me, if somebody is generally, I feel like if you're 50 and older and you're carrying that weight around the middle, and it's, this isn't typical for you, you've been kind of putting on weight in weird places. We do some quick, let's check for insulin resistance. There's some ways to just, visually identify potentially that's going on. Certainly can do blood test. And then what I like to do is go, okay, well, I think this is what's going on. Let's try and adjust your food accordingly and see what happens. And then if things don't go the way we'd expect, then we can start doing some testing and see what else is happening. But I always say, let's start with the easy stuff. Let's just adjust your diet. And so yes, I think you have to understand carbohydrates. You have to understand there are certainly carbohydrates that everyone should be limiting, including kids, and that's going to be the garbage.
Can you talk a little bit more about that specifically? That's a really good point.
Yeah. So, come on, right? Oreos are different than broccoli. Sourdough bread is different than Wonder Bread. I'm not a big fan of grains in general. We in our house have been grain free for over 10 years, but that doesn't mean I don't eat bread. Sure, occasionally if I'm at a restaurant and they have really good bread, I'm going to have some bread. But I also don't feel like you have to be perfect. You just have to do the things that work for your body more often than the things that don't. Yeah. So grain free most of the time. But anyway, so understanding the difference between garbage foods. So that's going to be things that are super highly processed. Those are carbohydrates. Yeah. So there's, your Oreos, your potato chips, pretzels, crackers, cookies, all that garbage. And then healthy, normal carbohydrates. So all your non-starchy vegetables, the ones that go in your salad, fruit. And now certain people I would encourage to not do fruit right away if we're trying to kill sugar cravings, for example, and their insulin's way too high. But that doesn't mean they can never eat fruit. It means let's work. There's no finish line. We're working there. Personally, I'm low carb. I fluctuate low carb keto, but yes, I had a sweet potato for breakfast with my eggs and some other things because it's okay, so it just depends on the person and metabolically where they are and what they can tolerate. And that shifts as they get healthier and their body gets into balance. But yeah, it's so funny. People think when they eat low carb or keto, they're not eating carbohydrates. And I'm like, you can eat a ton of vegetables and you can eat fruit, and berries are going to be your best choice if you're trying to stay low sugar. I think for me, the biggest one is if somebody is super sugar addicted. My question to them is, well, you had a bunch of blueberries. How did you feel after the blueberries? Did you feel like you needed to have some ice cream or maybe some, sugary drink? Or did you feel like, hey, I'm satisfied and I'm done? Because those are two different things.
You're right. So do you believe that everybody should limit their carbs at the end of the day? Do you feel that most people eat too much sugar carbs?
I do. Oh, I
Yeah.
think most people eat way too much sugar. And if we want to call sugar a carb, because sugar, carbohydrate, or it's just an umbrella term for sugars.
Yeah.
But it depends on the sugars, right? Again, do I think they need to limit their Oreos versus their apples? Yeah. So yeah, less Oreos, more apples. But then, again, depending on the person, there's some people I would say, let's not do apples right now either. No Oreos or apples right now. But this doesn't mean you can't eventually, or maybe you do blueberries instead of apples. But yes, I think for sure people need to limit, especially their liquid calories. So those coming in from sodas, and just the. I think a lot of people really don't understand this whole macronutrient thing. They focus on calories, and it's more about what your body's doing with the food versus the calories that the food has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. So we have a question about sugar, actually. So what would be the best sugars or sweeteners to use so it doesn't impact our body?
So there are a lot of sugar alternatives. I tend to lean toward those that are considered natural. I mean, they're still processed, right? So stevia, allulose, monk fruit. Everybody's going to kind of react differently to these sugars or these sweeteners. We actually have a gigantic stevia plant in our yard. So we do use stevia unprocessed. So we'll cut chunks off and we put it in our sun tea when we're making iced tea outside in the sun. And it just seeps. Oh, it's really good. We miss it so much in the winter. But other than that, I do have stevia drops and I have, organic stevia extract. My family really likes monk fruit. They like allulose. Those tend to not bother them. Splenda, that's out there. That's more of a chemical sweetener, but a lot of people like it. And there's a lot of people in the nutrition world that are like, it's fine. And then there's other people that are like, it's going to kill you. So you have to decide also for yourself where you draw the line. That's something that I talk a lot about with my clients is let's play around with the sweeteners. Let's see what works for you. Because even a natural sweetener, an alternative to sugar, it can still cause sugar cravings. It just depends. Yeah. So I have to be very careful with stevia because the liquid stevia is so sweet. Yeah. Or the powdered. If I get it on my tongue, I'm like, and I just think, I want more. And I don't do that with some of the other sweeteners, but I know that about stevia.
You're so right. I mean, sometimes I see people, they use stevia and they use, I have to say, a little bit too much. Yeah. They go crazy, right? But sometimes the insulin will spike with stevia, which is crazy. It shouldn't spike, but it's so sweet that the body feels it's like sugar. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable.
So your brain, right? So that's interesting. Do you use a blood glucose monitor? Do you test your blood sugars?
The patient would tell me, actually.
Yeah, because I like that. I like testing blood sugars. I'm a big fan of people having a glucose monitor and being like, let's identify, does that work for you? Doesn't it?
Exactly. We don't know until you try because we are so different, right? So you mentioned macros a few minutes ago. So what's the best macro ratio that you see with your client that works the best?
Well, that is such a good question. And again, it's such a dumb answer because it's like, well, it is going to depend mostly on the person. I personally am a high protein pusher. I am all about, especially for women over 50, more protein, eat more protein. The more protein you're eating, the more it's going to crowd out the other stuff. So I like to have kind of a protein target and then let the fats and the carbohydrates float. And some people are going to feel more satisfied with more fat, and other people are going to feel more satisfied if their carbs are a little higher. Again, it's going to depend. Type 2 diabetic, pre-diabetic, we're going to have to be more targeted with the sugars and carbohydrates. But as they get healthier, they can start to play around because you're really trying to get the greatest satisfaction and satiation for the least amount of energy. And our body's always looking for protein. So if we can hit our proteins, our body's going to be more satisfied, and it's going to be less likely to be like, let's eat that. Oh, we should have a snack. Oh, let's eat this, because it got what it needed. It got the vitamins and the nutrients.
Yeah.
And if you can get your body into a place where you can burn body fat pretty efficiently, it's not going to ask you to feed it. It won't need fuel, and you just gave it all the nutrients. So, 4 to 5 hours later, it might ask you to feed it. And that's my goal with my clients. I'm like, let's try to get to a place where your body is so satisfied that you feel good for 4 or 5 hours.
Good. So one of the problem, I am a low carb fan as well. I like low carb, paleo, keto, carnivore, all those different diets. But one of the struggles that I have often, especially with the older generation, I should say, is the fear of eating fats.
Yeah.
We are so fearful of adding more animal fats or animal protein. So how do you go about this myth, this confusion, this fear?
Well, I do just kind of keep drilling it into them that it's not the fat that's causing all the inflammation. It's not the fat that's causing the disease. It's actually the sugars, which are inflammatory. So the fats are actually good for you. We talk about, when you were a kid, what did you eat? What did your grandparents eat? That kind of stuff. But also, if they don't want to eat butter, if that makes them nervous, I'm like, well, how about olive oil? Let's do olive oil. How do you feel about that? So typically there is a healthy fat that they will be comfortable with. So you just kind of go to where they are and work from there.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much confusion, right? I mean, you go online and you can hear and read about everything and anything. So it's hard for people to distinguish what makes sense, what doesn't make sense.
Yes.
So we have another question. This is a good one. I would like to get your input on that. What about coffee? Is coffee good? Coffee bad? Again, there's so much confusion. Is it keto friendly? Should you drink it?
I am fine with coffee. I'm fine with coffee. I'm not a coffee drinker, but I never have been. I just never developed a taste. I don't like hot drinks. I just never did. Now, coffee ice cream, I could eat a ton. I love the flavor. I just don't like coffee. My husband, my daughter, coffee connoisseurs. So my only thing with coffee is when I have clients who are having sleep issues. Then we have to kind of look and go, well, how late are you having coffee? And there was such an interesting study. I don't know. I have it written down somewhere, but it was so interesting because it tested people in sleep labs and they wanted them to rate their sleep. And it was when they had certain times a day, they had coffee in different groups and all this stuff. And everybody rated their sleep. I slept great. And the sleep people were like, really? Because this says you slept horrible. And they're like, I did. And so it turns out if they had coffee, I don't know, after 2 PM or so, I don't know what it was, but they thought they were fine. And in fact, their sleep was very disrupted. So when people tell me that coffee doesn't interrupt their sleep, but yet they're not great sleepers, I'm like, well, we might want to check into that a little bit.
Yeah. Does coffee really stress your adrenals and impact your stress hormone? Is that the mechanism behind this?
It's certainly, right? So you have to always take into consideration the level of stress you're under generally.
Yeah.
With anything, because this goes right into exercise too. I don't necessarily tell people to just start exercising. If they're already high stress, then exercise is just another stressor. And if you're already high stress and you're using coffee to kind of get through the day, that is like a bad indicator. Like coffee shouldn't be a crutch.
True.
Yeah. So I think if it's becoming a crutch, then there is something you got to look into that a little bit.
You have a good point that if you become addicted to it or you need your coffee in the morning to get started, maybe you eat a little bit too much sugar, like you said, a little bit too much carbs or whatever.
Yes.
Another question we got related to keto is about wine, alcohol. Is that something that can actually disrupt your keto state or impact your ketosis? Should you drink alcohol? Is it good? You know what I mean? So there's so many questions around alcohol and wine specifically.
Right. So people get very stressed out about getting kicked out of keto.
Yes.
That is not something that I tend to worry about. I mean, I don't chase ketones. I personally like to fluctuate and have ketones, at some point in my day, maybe flowing, but it's not something that I want my clients to chase or that I chase. Yeah, wine, alcohol, it definitely can kick you out of ketosis because it's a fuel source. So you have to burn off that alcohol before you can even start burning off sugars. Yeah. And of course, you have to burn the sugars before you can start burning fat. So yeah, it's just going to slow things down. But again, if you're committed to your goal and you're playing the long game, then you can make those choices and say, hey, I'm going out Saturday night. I think I'm going to have some wine with my friends. But I know that's okay. I know it's going to slow me down, but I'm just going to get right back onto my normal plan on Sunday or Monday morning. And it's okay. You just have to understand what you're doing. And it'll make things probably slower. The other question is, what do you eat when you're drinking wine? What other choices do you make? How's your sleep? Probably not as good. So there's other things going on there.
Yeah, that was a tough question, I have to say, because it's a tricky topic. Like you said, there's so many different factors.
Well, I do give my clients a guide on alcohol, low carb alcohol guide. So I'm like, look, if you're going to drink, let's try to make better choices. It's still going to impact, have an impact on your fuel partitioning and burning. But, again, it's a choice. You decide.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, to me, it's to find the right balance to enjoy your life. If you like a glass of wine, why not? Right?
Exactly. So if you can do a glass of wine and then not eat a bag of potato chips and then we should go to the ice cream store now, then you know what? You're probably fine. If that glass of wine is your gateway to going, we should go to the ice cream store. Again, then you're kind of like, I should probably rethink this. Why am I actually having the wine? Is it just so I can go to the ice cream store? Am I using that as my evidence for my excuse to go to the, whatever?
That's a really good point. And that's why it's so important sometimes to have a coach, somebody like you, who can really determine why you have certain cravings, why you have certain habits, because we don't know, right? We create our habits and we just do what we've been doing. Yeah. So keto is most likely the most common question that I get a lot. And the second question that I get all of the time is cleansing. Cleanses. Is that something, is anything true behind that? I mean, sometimes it makes me nervous when I see people buying all those different products online and they start detoxing, cleansing. I'm concerned.
Yeah.
What is your take?
So I'm not a huge fan of all, especially the weird ones that are just like these liquid weird cleanses and stuff. Now, having said that, disclaimer, I do have a detox program. It's a detox cleanse. I call it a detox. It's a liver. It's a liver support program. So I do run that with people. It's 14 days. And we use a protein powder mix and a cleanse powder. And so you do shakes, but it's not calorie restrictive. You eat food. I give them a 14-day menu plan of all, low carb meals and snacks. So if people want sort of a jump start to get off their sugar cravings, I feel like maybe they need to kind of support their liver a little bit. This would be something that I tend to suggest. And all it is it's not. So I do take out the most inflammatory foods. So that's not something you'll be eating. We eliminate all the inflammatory foods. But what you're really doing is you're giving yourself a ton of vitamins and minerals and amino acids. So you're basically giving your liver everything that it needs to process your detoxification properly. That's all you're doing. You're just giving it this big hit of the vitamins and minerals needed for phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification and get your liver rolling. People love it. I'm always so surprised, but they love it. And I think, okay, I like it. I do it every now and then. And I'm like, this is fun. But mostly it's fun because you don't have to cook twice a day. So you have one giant meal, snacks, and then 2 shakes. And I tell you what, everybody's like, I don't want to give up my shakes. It's so easy. And I'm like, you're giving up your shakes. You have to get back on real food.
You do it. You're right. Once in a while, detoxing is not bad. And it has to be done with a professional, right? Because if you buy those products, you can actually harm yourself. So
Yeah.
make sure you work with a practitioner who understands the detoxification pathways, your liver, nutrition, and so on.
And what's going to happen. And I have a 14 days video series they go through, and every day I pop on and I'm like, here's what's going to happen today. And I've had everybody write to me and they're like, oh my God, it's exactly what happened. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Well, enough people have gone through this. I'm like, I know exactly what's going on. This is how you're going to feel.
Exactly. That's good. That's good. That's important. I mean, we are exposed to so many different types of toxins in our daily life. It's so important at some point to address this factor, right?
Yeah.
And what about stress? I mean, it seems that people are stressed out these days. I mean, no wonder, right? With the pandemic that started last year and all the stress, the changes in our life. So how do you help people with stress? Because stress does impact how you feel, your gut, your hormones, and so on.
It's so huge, and in and of itself is it's its own thing. So for me, the biggest way I can help, well, again, adjusting your diet. That's like, and I'm sure you've heard this too, when people start taking the inflammatory foods out and start eating stuff that is actually real whole foods, they're just like, I feel better. People have told me I have this calm energy as opposed to just like this franticness. So that's one step. And I do see that too with people, everybody thinks food, no, I'm fine. That doesn't bother me because they don't have gut issues, but they don't realize that depression, anxiety, this high level of perceived stress, headaches, migraines, that's all gut related as well. So it's so fun to see them shift their diet and then see their anxiety go down and see them kind of just having a clearer brain, thinking better. Oh, did I lose you? I'm going to keep talking. I'm not sure if I'm still on or if I lost you. But where was I? So the other thing, adjusting the diet and then sleep. That's the other thing I would do. So always try to kind of figure out what's going on with sleep. How can we adjust sleep? What can we do to create or improve the quality of sleep? Because gosh, once people start sleeping, everything gets better. So that's where I'm at. I don't know if we are still on or not. Oh, wait, here's a comment. Let's see. Yay, coffee. Okay. So is anybody else still here? Are we still on? It doesn't look like we are.
Okay, I'm back.
There you are. I just kept talking. I don't know if it was still recording.
It was still recording. I just lost my connection on
okay,
my
good.
side.
Then I was like,
for some reason, I'm sorry.
Thanks,
so you were talking about stress. So let's start from there.
I sort of kept going, and then I just said the biggest thing. So adjusting what you're eating, because that really can impact how you feel. But then the next big thing is sleep. So we always try to focus, because I swear, oh my gosh, once people start sleeping, they're just like, oh, it's like a whole new world. So I do a whole module just on sleep. That's sort of one of our more advanced parts, but we get in there.
You do more than just food. You look at diet, you look at lifestyle.
Yes.
That's really important.
It's and back to the exercise too. I mean, I have people I have to say, you have to stop exercising. You're way too stressed out. Let's calm down. And they're just like, and then of course that makes them tense. So like, what do you mean? I'm like, no, we're going to just stop. You can walk, but I don't want any of this, crazy spin classes and I don't know, whatever. Just calm down. And it's amazing that people who are frustrated and stuck at a certain weight, they will, once they calm down, then they'll release this weight that they just can't seem to get rid of. It's so interesting.
It is. It seems that the stress hormone, the stress in general, will really hold your weight to use like crazy.
Yeah.
And sometimes people believe doing more workouts or more exercises, it's better, but it could be the other way, like you just said.
And I'm a fan of exercise. I'm a huge fan. But once you get to that point where your body's asking you to exercise, then you know you're ready.
Exactly. Can you tell us about a story, a patient of yours who came to you? She was a mess, he was a mess, and you really flipped the whole thing. You really reversed everything, and now she's like amazing.
Well, one of my favorite clients. She just sort of, it's kind of what happens, right? It was kind of this blind dive. She just thought, I don't know what to do. I'm completely overwhelmed. And this was my favorite. She would see those before and after pictures on the internet, and she would go, that looks really hard. So they had the opposite effect on her. She would see them and think, I could never do that. That looks way too hard. And so anyway, she just finally decided she had to do something, because all of a sudden 20 years of doing what she thought was right, feeding her family the way she thought she was supposed to, she was now, 60 pounds overweight. I think she was at 200 pounds, and she was pre-diabetic. And she thought, wow. I just don't know what happened, and I don't know what to do, and I just don't think I have it in me to do it. But she's like, okay, let's do this. And so, it hasn't even been a year. So she was with me last August. She has hit her goal weight. So her birthday was in May, and she hit her goal weight before May. She's back to the weight that she had basically been most of her life, where she felt comfortable, and the weight she was married at and all that. But you know what she did? She never said, I need to lose 60 pounds or whatever it was. She was just like so pleased that she felt better, that she wasn't craving sugar, that she wasn't hungry all the time, that she was out there shoveling snow. She's like, I just go out and shovel it. It was during winter in Connecticut. But she said to me, she'd get on the scale and she'd go, oh, look, I lost a pound. And she'd be like, that's so cool. Not, oh, I didn't lose 5 pounds, or, oh my God, I can't believe I only lost a pound. She would just be like, oh, neat. To her, it was just like, neato. Well, that's cool. And then, the next time she'd get on the scale, maybe she didn't lose a pound, and she'd be like, oh, okay. So this is that whole idea again of attachment versus commitment. She was just like, this is what I do. Let's see what my body does. And then she's curious, oh, I lost a pound. Oh, I didn't lose a pound. Did I do anything different? She was curious. She wasn't like mad at herself. She wasn't like, oh, I'm a total failure. So to me, she's like my favorite, because I just liked the way she approached it. I was like, this is it. This is what's happening. And we get on a weekly call, and she'll say, well, it's funny. I haven't, I feel really good. Everything seems to be going well. I'm not really doing anything different. My weight hasn't changed. She's maintaining, which to me is also success. Please, everyone. Yeah. Maintaining is success. Think about that. Go on vacation and maintain where you are.
That's big.
Fantastic. Yep. Come home. Maybe you gained a little bit. Come home, get back on plan, and it went away. Fantastic. So then she'd get on the phone a couple weeks later, and she'd be like, "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, I lost 5 more pounds." She's just like, so in a way, she kind of expects it, because she's doing it right. She knows she set the dominoes in place. She's created the proper trajectory, and she just lets time. It's her ally. She just knows time is going to take her where she wants to go. So that, yes. Well, and then I had my other kind of bigger one. This is a couple of years ago, and this is why I do 3 months. So I had this man, and he was officially a type 2 diabetic on paper, diagnosed. He was a referral from the doctor, and he was not on insulin, but he was on metformin, and he was on 3 blood pressure medications, tons. So he's great. He did exactly what I suggested. He followed, my ideas, and he said he felt amazing. He didn't feel deprived. It was all going really well. 3 months later, we did his blood work again. Not one marker of type 2 diabetes. In fact, all his markers were optimal. They weren't even just good. He had completely shifted. Now he lost about 25 pounds, but he probably had another 15 pounds to go to what he really wanted. So he hadn't actually lost all the weight, but yet he's completely shifted his internal environment. So he's shifted his body back into balance. And now his body's literally helping him get the rest of what he wants, which is releasing that weight, feeling his best, having good energy. And let me just throw one more out there, because this is for everybody who is totally attached to their scale. I had another guy and I'd see him every week, and he was an older man, and, you know, getting him to understand the difference between salad dressing full of sugar versus one that had healthy fats and low sugar and whatever.
Right.
But he was doing it. He was making little adjustments every time I saw him, but his weight, he weighed 248.3 pounds. And I was just like, every week he came in, he weighed 248.3 pounds. And I thought, I was like, that is amazingly perfectly exactly the same. And so, you know, I was getting frustrated, because I was just like, I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening. And he wasn't giving me much. He wasn't much of a communicator. And then finally I was like, yeah, it's so strange. I said, I'm sorry you're not seeing any change. And he's like, well, I had to buy all new clothes. I mean, my pants were literally falling down. So I had to get a new belt, and I had to get all new pants. And I was just like, and I'm like, they just hold out on me. I'm like, they don't tell me the good stuff. And I sit there and I think, what's going on? And then finally, you know, so he was doing what I see, which is most common, is you see all these changes and body composition changes before the scale might catch up. And yes, he did drop the weight, but it, you know, was so, he changed sizes way before any weight change.
That's something I see almost all the time. The inches shrinks, you know, the size goes down, but the weight at some point, it seems to me that people are really focused on the numbers, right?
Yes.
But the numbers, to me, is a symptom that something out of balance. And like you just said, if you can put everything aligned, balanced, the weight drops.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a data point. It's just something to watch.
Yeah.
And anybody out there that's listening that hates their scale, that gets on their scale in the morning and it totally dictates their mood for the day, I'm going to tell you right now, you are attached to your goal. You're letting that scale number mean something about you. And it doesn't. It doesn't care about you at all. It doesn't think about you. Nothing. It's just a number. But I know we get very attached.
Yeah, that's true, right? We become so obsessed with that, and you focus everything else. So this is almost over, actually. So one last thing. So for somebody who's watching us right now, they feel hopeless. They feel that they've tried everything to lose weight or feel better. What would you tell them? What would you recommend to them as a first step?
Well, and I know people hate this, but I would write everything down. I just would. I would track your food to start with. So you just really understand what it is. Don't try to do anything different. Just start writing it down. Like even for a week, just take a week and go, this is my normal everyday food, and just write it down for a week. So you can really see how often you're eating, what you're eating, how much you're eating. So don't try to game it, just because this is something I heard this years ago and I loved it. Your body knows exactly what you ate. It knows exactly what you ate. So if you don't write it down, it doesn't mean that your body isn't impacted by that. So just be honest with yourself. Just write it down, see what's going on. Keep track of how you're sleeping. When did you go to bed? When did you wake up? How would you rate the quality of your sleep? So the things that I always tell my clients, I'm going to have them trace their day. So TRACE. So trace is going to be temperament or mood. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst, where would you rate your mood swings for the day? Then we have rest. So your sleep, you have to think back. I usually do this before when I get into bed. So I review the day. So how did I sleep the night before? And I have a sleep tracker. So I have that kind of dialed in. Again, 1 bad, 10 awesome. And then appetite. Were you just hungry all day? Were you thinking about food constantly? Or did you just kind of eat a couple of times because you were like, oh, I should probably eat. I'm actually hungry. Then we have cravings. So let's think sugar cravings.
Yeah.
What level are those cravings at? Are they controlling you, or are they sort of, have they gone away? Or are they somewhere in the middle where you're like, oh yeah, chocolate chip cookies are good, but I don't really need one. Then we have energy. So what was your level of energy? Was it up and down? Was it consistent all day? And that also plays into mood. And then I sometimes will add S on the end for stress. What was your level of perceived stress for the day? So the closer you get to tens, what I tell my clients is, it's not always going to be the same. It's going to fluctuate. But the closer you get to tens, the more you should understand that body balance is starting to happen on the inside. So it's a way for my clients to recognize that there is stuff happening on the inside, even if they're not seeing it on the outside. Because so many people give up because they don't see this. They don't recognize these things. So I always say track that. So traces of your day, and just watch and see where those numbers are going.
That's a really good point, especially when you work with clients for weight loss. They may not see the weight loss initially, and it can be really discouraging for them, and they give up.
Yes.
That's a very good
point.
And
they built all this progress that they didn't throw away because they didn't know how to see it.
Exactly. Great. So how can people reach out to you?
My website is called thesimplicityoofwellness.com. So they can always go there. I'm on Facebook as thesimplicityoofwellness.com. I'm on Instagram as thesimplicityoofwellness.com.
Okay.
So there's so it's social media. That's generally how you can find me. My website, there's always right on the front page, there's a link to set up a free call if you want to talk more about my Healthy You program and just what's going on. I always like to know what's going on. What obstacles are people facing? Where are they feeling stuck? I'm always so curious.
That's fascinating. Awesome. You guys, you can reach out to our if you have any questions. So Miss Amy, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It was a really good time. So thank you, and have a good rest of the day.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. Take care.
Take care.